Hello everyone, my name is Vitaly Neimer. I am the Grandmaster resident here at the St. Louis Chess Club, and today we have a special day. As you can see, I'm wearing this special shirt recognizing Fabiano's win today over Alexander Grishchuk. And yes, woohoo! So go Fabi! We had a huge celebration here at the Chess Club, and it's a really special moment. Not only for Fabiano for winning that championship, but also for the United States chess overall. So Fabiano, good luck, and we're all supporting behind you. And now let's get back to our lesson today. Today we're gonna have a strategy class. Today is gonna be our second part of the engine match that we discussed previously. Previously, we looked at some history and some pros and cons of using chess engines, some of the best fights, and today we're going to look at some other games that were played in that match. Last time we focused on one of the games which was called the Ultimate Machine War, in where AlphaZero played white pieces. And as we discussed the opening preparation, the opening choice was played by AlphaZero. We now know that he preferred to play the move d4 or knight f3 or c4. So today we are going to look at another game where AlphaZero played with the black pieces. And it's going to be interesting to see what kind of a reply he made with the black pieces. So Stockfish decided to start with this move e4. As his first move. We know that against e4, black has many choices, pretty much e5, c5, d5, e6, d6, c6, so many options today. But AlphaZero decides to go with a simple e5. And by the way, referring to the candidates tournament, most of the time the black candidates played e5 themselves. That's considered one of the most solid answers against e4. If you are more of a sharp player, you like more tactics, you probably will go to c5. If you like close positions, you should play e6. If you like a combination of a close position and a sharp position, you should probably play c6. But e5 was played in a game. Knight f3. Knight c6 is the best move. And bishop to b5. So Stockfish is entering the Lopez, also called the Spanish defense. Probably the most played opening of all times with the first move e4. Today, bishop c4 is slightly more fashionable, but bishop to b5 was played in the game. Now, here AlphaZero made an interesting choice. The most popular move is, of course, this move a6 with black. Driving this knight back to a4, but the bishop obviously can also take the knight here on c6. But recently in top level chess, we have seen this move knight to f6, which was played by AlphaZero, and this is what is known the Berlin defense of the Spanish opening. So knight f6 is a pretty simple move. Just developing the two knights makes lots of logic. So here really white needs to figure out what to play, what will be his plan. AlphaZero decided, Stockfish decided not to follow the main line, which is a castle, but instead he played the pawn to d3. Now, just to show you the main line of the Berlin defense, white usually castles, black snaps this pawn off e4, d4 is being played, knight coming back to d6, attacking this bishop on b5. This is one of the reasons why we don't play a6 ourselves, because we want to keep the bishop here, so we retreat the knight with a tempo. The bishop takes on c6, pawn takes on c6, pawn takes on e5, knight to f5, and the queen captures on d8 and king captures on d8. So this is what is well known as the Berlin endgame. It is called the Berlin endgame because of the Berlin Wall, as everybody knows, which was built in Europe, in Germany, which divided Germany. And obviously as any other wall, it was considered very, very solid, and this is why it got the name the Berlin Wall, because it's very solid. White has many, many options here. I would say that about 10 or 20 years ago, this position looked very unsound for black to play, because it looks like black is just black is just losing a castle. He lost his castle. He has two double pawns here on c6. So it looks pretty bad, like a bad position to play for black. But the idea for black is that, first of all, we are in an endgame. So we don't mind the fact that the king is in the center of the board. The second advantage that black has is those two bishops. And this is a long-term advantage. Even today, we know that it's pretty difficult to get an advantage out of the opening. I mean, you need to either have very good opening preparation, or your opponent needs to play some kind of a risky line. So even today, if a player gets the two bishop advantage out of the opening without any too much other advantages like space or anything else, that's supposed to be enough and make us happy. So this is the main line of the Berlin defense. It was not played in a game. Instead, Stockfish decided to play this move, d3. More of a subtle move to play for white, just defending the pawn, keeps all the options open, does not get into an endgame. Okay, so by the way, we have seen one of those positions happened in the candidates tournament here, which was played by Aronian. He decided to play this variation against Kramnik. So who knows what is the move here what is the best move here to play for black? Yes.
Was it rook to g8 now?
Rook to g8 now. Okay. It was rook to g8 later. Not exactly now. I would say it's a bit risky right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
D6.
Bishop.
D6.
Not to d6. d6 will be a little bit passive because we won't be able to develop this bishop on c8. But yes, you were correct. Bishop to c5. It's very simple, just like in the Italian game, the bishop usually goes to c5. If you can put the bishop on c5 instead of d6 or e7, that's the way to put it. I mean, there's no reason why not to put it there. We are definitely not losing a pawn here. For example, bishop takes c6. We can just take with the pawn on c6. And if the knight takes on e5, exactly, queen to d4. You guys know your tactics. Well, let me show you another tactic. In this position, there's a very surprising trap. Instead of black playing bishop to c5, black can play this very unusual move, knight to e7.
Oh, I see the knight.
Does anybody know what's the name of this trap? It doesn't make sense, right? Why would we bring our knight to e7? I mean, it's the all opposite of us studying chess. We bring our knight back. We basically block our bishop, block our queen. It almost looks like we are preparing to get smothered. However, this is very tempting here for white to take this pawn here on e5. And this variation is called the Mortimer Trap. The Mortimer Trap. It was named after the American player James Mortimer. And he was one of the first ones who played it. So what's the idea? What happens if knight snaps this pawn on e5?
C6. Oh, C6.
Exactly. c6, attacking the bishop. And the bishop has to go back. Let's say bishop a4. And queen to a5. Perfect. Oh, that hurts.
Ouch.
That hurts.
Okay.
Same thing with bishop c4. And just to trap you just a little bit, white can play this move, knight to c4. What to do here?
You don't want to get painted on d6.
Exactly. So we don't want to take the bishop on b5. because we are going to check smother made it on d6. A trap. You put me on a trap, I'm going to trap you. So what to play here with black? Yeah, so it's either d5 or simply d6. And now we maintain all of our threats. If bishop to a4, we don't have queen a5, but we can just simply play b5 and fork the bishop and the knight. Yeah. So this is the Mortimer trap. Now, obviously, if now you know this, you obviously won't take on e5. And if white can simply castle, well, that's pretty much it. You know. now we're in a much worse position. Okay, let's go back to the game. So bishop c5 was played in the game. White took on c6, d2x on c6, pretty much following that game, Aronian, Kramnik, and now white castled. Okay, so here was the first change between the games. Kramnik played this more logical move, queen to e7, defending the pawn on e5. Instead, AlphaZero decided to play this strange move, knight to d7. What is this move? Is it like some kind of a Mortimer Trap AlphaZero style? So the idea, of course, in the first sight, we can see that the knight is simply defending the pawn on e5. And but why to d7? Why would we block our bishop and our queen? Well, the plan is going to be revealed in a few moves. So let's see what happened. White played c3. Obviously, white is trying to push d4 like in any other e4 almost any other e4 opening. Black simply castled. And now white played d4, attacking the bishop on c5 and the pawn on e5. Okay, so I will move here with black. But what do we do here with black? Do we take the pawn on d4? Do we ignore the threat? Do we run? Do we run? And if we run, where do we run? So what to do here with black? What would be the best choice? Okay, interesting. So your idea is to take on d4, pawn takes, and then bishop to b4. Okay. Anybody has any other ideas?
Knight f6.
Knight to f6. Okay, just ignoring the threat. Okay.
Bishop d6.
Bishop d6. Okay, moving the bishop backwards. Okay. Bishop b6. Well, you guys almost said all possible choices. The only question is which one of them is the best one. We need a tiebreaker. Bishop d6. Yes, thank you very much. And bishop d6 is the correct move. Let's see why. Let's see why. For example, if I take the pawn on d4, pawn takes on d4, this is just going to help white. White's going to get the solid center here, and if we move bishop to b4, well, we're going to get under attack. I'm going to get an attack again, and then white will simply develop his knight on c3. Nice center, no problems for white, and so this is not so good. Obviously, sacrificing the bishop is just a little bit too premature. Don't forget that even after we sacrifice the bishop on c5, there's a high likelihood that we are going to exchange queens. And without the queens, in an endgame with a piece down, I would not want to play Stockfish in that position against Stockfish. So the choices between bishop b6 and bishop d6, well, we need to defend the pawn. So bishop d6. We have to retreat to defend. Okay, so far so good. Bishop to g5 was played by Stockfish, attacking our queen on d8. Queen e8 was played. We just moved the queen back. Rook e1. So white is developing his forces. And now comes the whole idea behind this interesting move knight d7. The whole idea is for black here to play this move f6. Exactly. Some people will say never play f6. But I say don't believe those people. Because here we are playing f6. Now, so usually the problem in f6 or f5 is that we are weakening this diagonal. Now, if white tries to check us, that's no problem because queen f7. And I'm fine with exchanging the queens and going into an endgame. So why is this move f6 is so good? Well, simply because the bishop here on g5 needs to find a place for himself. And it's not so easy. Would I put the bishop here on e3? Well, it's going to block the rook on e1. If I put it on d2, it's going to block my queen and my knight. Obviously, I'm not going to go back home to c1. So the bishop goes to h4. And when the bishop goes to h4, it looks like the bishop is developed. It looks like the white knight here is doing a great job. They're both developed. But they're actually not. This is one of those kind of a wall. I would call it a fence. A fence which blocks and restricts this knight and bishop. And it's very, very effective. While we can transpose our pieces to some other better squares. Excellent question. So the question was, why didn't we play f6 here before queen e8? Anybody wants to huh? Because of what? Right. So he can either take on e5 or remember, because our queen is not here, he can also check us on b3. Again, it's probably not that deadly, this check, but we have to move our king, and eventually I will need to move my queen again. So I prefer to place the queen on f7. Good question. So bishop to h4, queen to f7 now. As you can see, when we are playing the Berlin defense or any kind of e4, e5 opening, so especially the Berlin defense, the game is much slower. It's more symmetrical. There's much more maneuvering going on, and it's not like the Sicilian dragon or the Najdorf, where we see sacrifices all the time. And this is a much slower pace. Knight bd2 was played, so white is just developing the knight. a5, black does want to get some space on the queen side. Bishop g3, white understood that the bishop on h4 is not doing much, so he puts some pressure on this pawn on e5. Rook to e8. Queen to c2. And now it is time for us to somehow to put somewhere else this knight and bishop. So black decides to play knight to f8. We're not really sure where the knight is going to, but we're definitely sure that it's not the best square for him to stay on d7. c4 is being played. The idea is to push our bishop back by playing c5. And once the bishop goes to e7, then white can take on d4. So black to move. How do we fight this threat? Okay, we can either take on d4, right? What else can we do?
You take d4.
You can play what?
You take d4.
You can take on d4, yes, you can do that.
C5.
You can play c5, yeah. b5, okay, counterattack, interesting. Bishop b4, okay.
Two bishops.
So one of the moves that you guys mentioned was the correct one.
Knight f6, knight e6.
There's also knight e6. Yeah. So, okay. Let's look at those. If I play bishop b4 here, then white can simply take this pawn on e5. b5, same thing. It's just too aggressive. c5 will follow, and I'm going to take on e5. That's pretty much only helping white's plan. So knight e6, same thing. Probably just taken on e5 because we're blocking our rook. So that pretty much leaves us two options. Do we take on d4 or do we play on c5? And I assume that obviously AlphaZero, with his calculation power, try to evaluate his options. But taking on d4 will really release white's pieces. So instead he played this move c5. And white obviously does not want to take on c5, because if he takes on c5, bishop takes on c5, and now we'll see this amazing position. Suddenly, this fence becomes a wall. There's no way for white to move those pawns. Really, this knight is going to get stuck, as well as this knight on d2. Now bishop on c5 will become very active. And I don't need to tell you what's going to happen after knight's going to come to e6 and d4. It's going to be a disaster for white at some point. So obviously white decides not to take, but to play d5. Okay, so let's look at this position. Let's do a small assessment of the position. So we got into some kind of a closed position, maybe semi-closed. I would say actually it's pretty closed. And we know that in the closed positions, knights are preferable over bishops because they can jump around. But this position is quite unique, because if you look at white's knights, they don't have real outposts in this position. So it's not going to be so easy for white to play.
The center pawns are kind of in his way, aren't they? The center pawns on E and
d5.
C, yeah, E4 and C4 are kind of in the knight's way.
Exactly, yeah. So sometimes, those pawns on e4 and c4, they are on knight's way, and sometimes white even tries to sacrifice them at some point, but black just didn't give him any choice. Okay, so d5 was played. Black plays b6 and knight h4. So white is trying to spot an opening, where to put his knights. He looks at f5. He likes f5. Well, obviously we don't let him play g6. Now the knight on h4 looks a little bit silly, so the knight just moves back. If you see those moves happen in the game, like knight h4, knight f3, that means that something is going wrong in the game. Stockfish is not having any plans here. Bishop d7 was played, a simple move, developing the bishop. Rook a1, and now black continues his development. Rook e7, h3, and queen g7, and rook a to e8. Okay, lots of maneuvering going on. As you see, very slow game, very close game. By the way, we know that in history, the chess engines are not playing so well in close positions. They don't really understand some of those outflanking maneuvers and some of those exploding moves in the center. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. a3 was played, and now h6. So h6, this move, basically black made a battery of rooks, and he is ready to push f4. f5 and then f4. But he can't do it immediately because of bishop h4 or knight to g5, so he plays h6 first, a preparation move. Okay, well, Stockfish sees that, and he plays bishop h4. He pins the rook. Okay. Now, before we continue into looking at this game, I call this game the draw offer between chess engines. Now, if you think about when somebody is offering a draw, over the board, and there's a match between two players, the only thing you have to do is to offer a draw. Usually, you do it once you made a move. Otherwise, your opponent's gonna ask you to make a move. But what about engines? How do they offer a draw if there's a match? Do they have like a unique button or something, like a code?
Repeat moves.
Exactly. So the only way that they can do it is by repeating the moves. We use that rule of threefold repetition of the same position. So here's what happens here. Bishop h4, rook to f7, he comes out of the pin, prepares f5 again. Well, white moves the bishop to g3. Now we cannot play f5 because white is going to have just too many attackers on this e5 pawn. So black decides to go back to f3 e7. Bishop h4 was played. That is correct. Rook f7. Rook g3. Anybody is counting the moves? Okay, here is where if black going to play rook f2 e7, white can claim a draw. It's going to be the third time that it's going to happen. But what does he do? Well, we know that black won the game, so he refuses. AlphaZero refuses to the draw and plays this subtle move a4. Now, why would he refuse though? Why would we repeat some moves in the chess game and then refuse to a draw? Anybody knows? We have actually, I think, 3 reasons.
Wants more time to plot.
Yes. So reason number 1 is when we're in time pressure. Lots of the games that we are playing today, they include increment. So even half a minute, 30 seconds can make the difference. If you repeat it 2 times, you get a minute. So a minute is pretty important. So that's reason number 1. What's reason number 2? Anybody knows? Yes, please.
You're repeating to see if the other player wants to draw?
Yeah, correct. So you're repeating the moves to see maybe he does make the draw, or maybe he's going to chicken out and make something else. The nerves. What's reason number 3? You know that feeling that you come to the game and you don't really want to play the game, or maybe you want to make a draw, or you're feeling blue, and let's say you get to the point where you start to repeat moves, and then your opponent starts to repeat moves, so you're happy. Yeah, he's repeating the moves. Okay, just one more move, and I can claim my draw. And suddenly he makes a different move. What is it going to do to you? Right? It's gonna, psychologically, you're gonna think, oh my God, come on, I have to stay here now and play the game. So psychologically, it can imbalance, the state of mind. Yeah, but what about computers? Do they have psychology? Computer psychology? Maybe that's a new major we have to invent, right?
Maybe Google's engine goes.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't want you to know that AlphaZero has emotions.
Yeah, maybe AlphaZero has emotions. Yes, that might be true.
Kasparov said Deep Blue felt like a human in that one game.
Yeah, they do think more like humans, more and more. So very interesting. Or he plays like Magnus Carlsen. Even in drawish positions, he still tries to squeeze, right? As long as I have some chances for a win, I'm still gonna play, and that's pretty amazing. Obviously, you won't be continuing in the lost position, but here you're not even close to be losing. Okay, well, let's see what happens. So a4 was played, king h1. So white says, okay, well, you made kind of a waiting move. I'm just going to wait with my king. Okay, f3 e7. Well, guess what? I'm going to repeat that again. Bishop h4. Rook to f7. Bishop to g3. Rook to e7. Bishop to h4. And now, if black again plays rook to f7, again we have another threefold repetition. But AlphaZero says, not so fast, buddy. And he plays this move, g5. He's ready to attack. Bishop to g3 was played. Knight g6, right. So that was the idea of g5. Now we have a nice spot for the knight here. So every move has a reason, every move. Okay, well, g5 also created a weakness, right? Every move has an advantage and a disadvantage. So what's the disadvantage of this move, g5?
F5.
Exactly, f5. So the move that Stockfish played? Knight f1. You guys playing like 3,600 players. Knight to f1. Rook to f7, knight to e3, and we cannot allow white to enter with his knight here on to f5, because not only the knight enters here, if we take, it's going to open up some files, so black plays knight to e7 back, just defending. Show him what you got. Queen d3, and now h5. Continue with the pawn push. Okay, well, white cannot allow black to push too much, like h4 and g4, so he decides to block the pawn himself by playing h4. Okay, so now starts a very interesting maneuver that that black is doing here. And the question you need to ask yourself is, what is black's worst piece? What is black's worst piece in this position?
His dark squared bishop.
Exactly. His dark squared bishop on d6. So he's trying to find a spot for the bishop. Obviously, if I could teleport and put the bishop on d4, this would be nice. It would be an awesome new move in chess, but we can't. So anybody can try to figure out where the bishop goes, on which diagonal he would be maybe more supportive. Exactly. Here on h6. After we move the pawn, he's going to be able to travel all along that diagonal. So we start with moving our knight. Knight to c8. Rook e2. g4 was played. Knight e2. He moves the queen. And bishop to f8. And by the way, now our best blockaders are knights, not bishops. So it is perfect for us to put the knight on d6. It almost looks like it's a puzzle. You know, it almost looks like he knows exactly where to put each piece. It's pretty amazing. And bishop to h6 was played. Okay, rook f1. So yeah, so black improved his pieces. His position looks nicer, but it's still not so easy to win. So he makes a waiting move, rook a1, rook a8, king h2. Okay, so in this position, AlphaZero thinks, okay, I'm really, I don't have a plan here, a clear plan. You know, what to do? I'm obviously attacking on the queen side, not on the king side. So what to do? I mean, if I play f5 here, e5 is hanging. If I try to open up the king side, again, my king might get exposed. So what to do in here? Black to move. Yes, Ken.
Bishop f4.
Bishop f4 is possible. And then what? Let's say I just make some random move. King h1. Would you?
Queen or rook to g7.
Okay, king h2. Bishop g5. Wow, that's a very interesting move. You know what? I'm not hungry. I already ate today. I'm just gonna play king h1.
So then I'm going to look at rook to f8 to double the rooks to push the f1, because then I have 4 pieces on f5.
Okay, that may be possible. But then, you know, if your bishop is going to be on g5, I'll probably take on f5, and I'll take the bishop on g5. So here he finds this very nice idea. He plays king to f8. There are two purposes to this move.
He played what? I missed it.
King to f8. There are 2 purposes for this move. Purpose number 1, well, maybe the king is going to walk to c8 and take shelter on b7.
No light squared bishop, you can't get to it, can you?
Yeah, it's a relocation of the king. But there's another purpose. White, Stockfish sees, he's a software. He sees that his rook now is aligned in front of the king. And he's thinking, I wish I could open up this file. I wish I could check him with my rook. And this was a really good provocation. So let's see what happens in the game. He plays king g1 first, and now he pushes f4. He wants to open up the position. Now, in my opinion, this might have been the losing move for white. We don't know what would happen in the game if white would never make this move, this weakness on f4. So he plays f4, and black says, yes, I got you. He takes en passant, rook takes, he exchanged the bishop now, king finds safety on e7, and now we have a bunch of rook exchanges. So rook comes to g7, exchanges, and you exchange the rooks, and come with the queen to h6. This position, it doesn't look so bad for white, but it's pretty terrible.
That back rank is sad.
The back rank is very sad, and especially this knight is so good attacking those backward pawns on c4 and e4. White wishes that he could bring the pawn here to d3 and bring his knight to d5 somehow. But unfortunately, that is not legal in chess. So he plays knight d2, bishop g4. Look at all of our pieces, just pretty good. And now he starts to squeeze him like an orange. King h2, king d7, b3, takes, queen g6, attacking this pawn. Knight d2. Now he transposes his bishop to a4. Very nice maneuver. Plays queen g4, just making small adjustments to his position, small improvements. Queen f3, bishop d1, and he's okay with exchanging the queens now. Queen takes g4. Okay, so how should we take the queen on g4? Should we take it with the pawn, or should we take it with the bishop? In one of the moves, you're going forward. In one moves, you're going backwards. Shouldn't we go forward all the time? Shouldn't that mathematically be better for us? Okay, so we have one more for the pawn. Luckily, we have an odd number of audience here, so we need a tiebreaker. We have 3 for the pawn, 3 for the bishop. So we have 4 for the pawn.
Change yours now. This will be fun.
Wait. So what's going on? We have 2 changes now? Still a tie. Oh no.
I was worried about the g4.
Okay. Cool. Let me just repeat what you said. So you said you would prefer to take with the pawn because the h pawn is not a threat because you're in the square.
Yeah.
And then you're also going to restrict the knight.
Right.
Now this position is all about the potential that you're giving to your opponent. Okay, not exactly what happens immediately, but the potential. So when we take with the pawn on g4, we create this passed pawn on the h file. Right now it's not exactly a big threat, but I know that I'm going to have to keep one of my pieces, the king here or the knight, to stop it. Now in regards to restricting the knight on d2, you're correct, I cannot go to f3. But that's one of the wonders of the knight. I can jump around, knight f3, then knight e3, and we can attack this pawn on g4.
Right the first time?
So the correct move was bishop takes on g4.
You tricked me.
Oh, no.
You said always
You
move
double
forward.
bluffed yourself. That's the worst part.
Exactly.
Always move forward.
You gotta listen to your heart. Okay? You gotta listen to your heart. So bishop takes on g4. Do not create those passers.
And you're also threatening f5 now to bring the knight into the game.
Yeah, f5 we could do in any case. But now the idea is that white cannot do anything with his pawns. This h pawn stops those 2 pawns on h4 and g2. And if you remember when we had the lesson about prophylaxis, one of those endgames that we discussed, there was also a similar pawn structure when one pawn stopped 2 pawns, and that's why really black has the advantage here. Okay, so a4 has been played in the game. He's trying to exchange this pawn on a4 with the idea of a5. Then he wants to take on c5. So black would play what?
Knight b7.
Knight b7, yes. Stop him at all costs. Don't give him any chance. knight to b1, knight to a5, attacking this weakness on c4. Bishop to e3. Now, white decides to give up this pawn on c4. There is no way to save it, simply because after knight to d2, then we can just simply play bishop e2, and that's it, the pawn is lost. Now, it's interesting to mention that, that we are going to get into some kind of a opposite color bishop endgame after exchanging the knights. But black's pawns are all defended, even by the king. But the pawn on e4 and a4 is going to be a huge liability for white to defend. So this is why white decides to just give up this pawn. So I played bishop e3, knight takes on c4, bishop to c1. Okay, bishop to d7, attacking this pawn on a4. Knight to c3. Okay, so looks like white consolidated his position, defended all his weaknesses. The bishop on c1 is kind of restricting our knight, doing a good job, not allowing our knight to come any further, any near the pawns. So what to do next with black?
The knight on c3 is overloaded.
Knight on c3 is overloaded. Okay, but how do we use that?
Knight to d6.
Okay, we can play knight d6, and then what? Would you sacrifice one of your pieces to get 2 pawns?
Yeah,
That's
I have connected passer.
that's actually a brave idea. You can do that, but
AI has a better plan.
yeah, it's very risky. I'm not sure if that would work exactly. Okay, another idea here in the audience is to bring the king all the way to a5. Let's see, I like this idea. What's the problem with this idea?
Maybe some color blue,
Right, so when the king leaves his home unattended, well, the thieves are gonna come in.
What about
c6, and what's the idea?
after recapture, maybe load up on the pawn at e4?
Yeah, exactly, and the main idea is not just to attack the e4 pawn.
You could also push b5.
Right, the idea is simply because we have those double pawns. We don't like double pawns almost in any position, so we just want to get rid of them. So let's exchange the double pawn. c6 was played, king to g1, black took on d5, white took with a pawn on d5. And bishop to f5, restriction of the knight. Black has all the time in the world in this position. King to f2. Knight goes back to d6. As you can see, the maneuvering continues in this game. Bishop to e3. And now black plays knight to e4, exchanging the knights. Now I have to say that using this technique in a real game I think it's not necessarily. I think it's very dangerous if you are the one who is playing for a win to start exchanging the knights in here, because you're gonna get into an opposite color bishop endgame, and those endgames usually end up in a draw. So I don't know, if it was my opinion, I would try to keep the knights as much as possible. But AlphaZero, he's calculating millions of positions and variations in a second. He probably knows what he's doing. And the idea here is that after the exchange, the d5 pawn is falling. There's no way to defend it. So I try to play a5. Pawn takes on a5. Bishop takes on c5, and king d7. So we are only a pawn down, and lots of opposite color bishop endgames were drawn before with 2 pawns down, even 3 pawns down. But the problem is that those pawns, we have two passers. That is the real problem. If we have only one passer, then white might block it, but two passes is too much. So let's see what happens. D6. Okay, so what's the plan here for black? How would you guys play this one? Do we just push the pawn on A? I mean, we can just make one move A4, but what's the real plan here?
Maybe the bishop to block the d pawn, and the king will support the a.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the bishop will come to block this pawn, to defend. This is exactly what happened in the game. Bishop to A3, and now the king comes in.
Can I also put my pawns on F4 and E4? Like get everybody ready.
Yeah, so the question was, can you put the pawns on F4 and E4? You can put them here, but then I can attack the pawn on E4.
Okay.
Right now, those two pawns are on dark squares, which enables white to attack them maybe here, but it's going to take him so much time. Every time you're going to push a pawn, it's going to be much easier for me to attack them. Okay. So bishop F5, king C6, and king to D5, king to D2. And now the idea for white is that if we play king to C4, maybe he can try to block it with a king. So he changes sides. It goes suddenly to the left. He shifts. Bishop B2 was played, but then the king just moves around and recaptures all the pawns here. A4, and king takes H4. So H4 is not so important because it's not giving us a pass pawn, but it will in the future. So let's see how the game ended. King F2, king G4, bishop to A3, bishop to D7, and now he decides to bring his king all the way back. And here is the idea. So in this position, after some minutes of thought, Stockfish resigned. Now, why is that? Let's look at an example variation. If white just plays bishop A3 and waits, now we're going to start pushing all of our pawns. Now, if white plays G3, what should we do? Should we take on G3 or should we not take on G3?
Not take.
Not take. And play?
Play H3.
H3, very good. Get those passes in there. King F2, E4, King G1, E3, bishop to C5, E2, bishop to B4. We stopped. Everybody, yay! Uh-oh. But we only have 2 bodyguards and we have 3 passers. A3. And then that's pretty much it. King H2, for example, A2, bishop C1, and now we promote one of the pawns and we win the game. So a very good game. As you can see that from the opening perspective, AlphaZero starts with the move on E4. He starts with the move E5, and lots and lots of maneuvering going on there. The Berlin defense is being featured. Very, very solid opening against Vitaly Lopez. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Vitaly Neimer, here from the St. Louis Chess Club.